Every sport on Earth, no matter what it is, has very specific regulations, and every good competitor will spend almost as much time trying to find very specific loopholes as they spend training. And this aspect is enhanced even more in the engineering-focused motorsports series. But there is a difference between the gray zone and cheating. A grey zone is something like Volvo's crooked engine heads in the British Touring Car Championship. It's not illegal, just a very clever way of interpreting the rules. Cheating is circumventing those rules completely, like how Ferrari sidestepped the F1 fuel flow sensor in 2019. Their fuel flow rate was higher than what was allowed, no matter how clever the system was. But nobody, not even Smokey Yunick himself, had as clever of a cheat as Toyota did in the World Rally Championship. So today, let's take a look at the most sophisticated cheating system ever devised, Toyota's Trick Turbocharger. In order to understand why Toyota did the things that they did, we have to understand the context of the years prior to the climactic conclusion. Now, between 1987 and 1992, Lancia and Toyota went to war in the FIA World Rally Championship. Lancia unquestionably won the war with 6 straight constructors' titles, but Toyota really made them work for it, and they even managed to sneak 2 drivers' titles in that time. But that is really oversimplifying the fact that this was Fiat versus Toyota, 2 of the world's biggest car companies who put everything they had into winning. Budgets were huge, the number of cars entered was immense, the drivers were some of the best in the world, and that's just the legal stuff. The rules stated that the cars could not run more than 300 horsepower, so the series did not fall back into the dangers of the infamous Group B class. Well, neither Toyota nor Lancia were having any of that, and were rumored to have been running closer to 400 horsepower to catch each other. But the battle was capturing the world's attention, so the FIA didn't really look that hard. Until Lancia left the sport at the end of the 1992 season to go bankrupt. Now the FIA had a vested interest in keeping competition close since half of their incredible rivalry was gone. Things got even worse for them when Toyota steamrolled to an easy 1993 championship with little that Ford, Subaru, and Mitsubishi could do about it. So the FIA began paying closer attention to the technical inspections of each car. Luckily, 1994 proved to be a lot closer. Subaru replaced their ancient legacy with a smaller, lighter, and more nimble Impreza, and Mitsubishi did the same, swapping the Galant with the Lancer Evolution. The smaller sedans proved to be more than a match for the Celica ST205, especially the full factory-backed efforts from Subaru. Toyota had a more consistent driver selection in 1994, giving them another constructor's title, but Subaru had Carlos Sainz. The Spaniard never finished lower than 4th all season, and when Didier Auriol retired in Greece, he took the championship lead. But even with 6 podiums in 10 rounds, 2 retirements in the second half of the season saw him lose the title to Auriol by 17 points. Toyota may have won both titles in 1994, but it was far from easy, and in a championship fought for exclusively by Japanese manufacturers, and technically a Ford, it was now a matter of national pride. And to be honest, there wasn't much pride in the Toyota camp at the 1995 season opener in Monte Carlo. Sainz took victory with the Subaru, while the Escort Cazes and the Lancer Evolutions both bested the Celicas. Kankin and Auriol made it clear that the power and the handling were lacking compared to their significantly improved rivals. Remember, the ST205 was turning 3 that year, while everyone else had the latest and greatest, meaning Toyota started the season in stone dead last. In the following round, they improved to second to last. and that's only because all of the Subarus retired from Rally Sweden. So as Ford and Subaru stuck in the snow, Mitsubishi capitalized to score a 1-2 finish, and they found themselves leading the World Rally Championship for the first time ever. Sainz took another win for his Subaru in Portugal, with his teammate Colin McRae bringing up third, and that in turn brought them back up to championship contention with a huge points haul. And then it was time for the Tour de Corsa. The biggest word of the rally was horsepower, specifically Subaru, and the fact that they didn't have any. They were way down compared to their rivals, and even with McRae and Sainz driving perfectly, they were struggling to crack the top 5. Toyota, meanwhile, was showing strong, and Didier Auriol blasted around the island and into the winner's circle. But mechanical problems for his teammates meant that Toyota was still stuck in second despite the impressive performance from the Frenchman. Raikkonen and Auriol were rapidly closing in on the begrudging championship leader of Sainz. Subaru felt confident, though, in New Zealand, given it was McRae's best rally, and sure enough, he took victory again, for the third time in a row. But let's be clear, Toyota had the best car, finishing second, third, and fourth. It was really McRae's skills that got into the winner's circle. But that incredible result from Toyota meant that they leapfrogged Mitsubishi by 18 points, taking the championship lead with just 3 rounds to go. That's an incredible turnaround, going from the 4th best car out of 4, and it was now looking like they were leading the World Championship, and it was going to go down between the ever-improving Evos and the new lightning-fast Celicas. And then came Rally Australia. McRae managed to sneak a second place in Australia, but it really was a Toyota and Mitsubishi race through and through. Both of Colin's teammates retired, while Toyota's lead over Mitsubishi closed to just 11 points, following Mitsubishi's first ever rally victory for the new Evolution 3. But the biggest talking point of Australia happened on the first day, on the special stage. Now, special stages are a staple of the World Rally Championship, but Australia's was unique, in that it saw 2 cars race, air quotes, against each other on opposite yet identical tracks. It's still against the clock first and foremost, but it's a bit of fun for the fans having the cars line up against each other and race around. It's all very good fun. And then something strange happened. On one run, a Subaru Impreza lined up against a Toyota Celica and began their drag race into their respective first turns. Now in theory, this race should be very even. They both have the same minimum curb weight, they both have the same tire size, and the same 300 horsepower, so the only real way to gain advantage is minor tuning, like gear ratio, suspension, stiffness, tire pressure, etc., and of course, driver reaction time. Which is why it was surprising to see the Toyota blast off into the distance, and leave the Subaru in its dust cloud. But teams didn't have much time to worry about that shock and focused on getting ready for the main rally, which is where you get most of your points. But they didn't forget about it. So with the paddock flummoxed about how to deal with the Toyota, they arrived in Spain. Sainz was on a mission in his home turf following a 2-rally-long absence due to a bicycle accident, and McRae was showing surprising restraint, flowing well through the tarmac corners. But not as well as the Toyota team. I mean, maybe they weren't flowing through the corners, probably not the right word, but brute force works as well. The drivers were complaining about handling problems throughout the weekend, but the times didn't show it. Kankinen was leading, with Armin Schwartz in third. Even Auriol was in the top 5 despite struggling to get to grips with his Toyota. The entire paddock was a bit confused as to how the drivers could be so unhappy and the cars could look so slow through the corners, and yet the times were at the very tippy top of the table, especially because Kankinen was doing well on tarmac, a surface he openly despised. Now granted, they breathed a sigh of relief when Kankinen threw it into a tree following an incorrect pace note, and his teammate Schwartz retired, but Auriol was still holding third, which meant that it became a 1v1 shootout between Sainz and McRae. Subaru enacted team orders to maintain a 1-2 finish, ensuring Sainz took victory in front of his home crowd. And despite that incredible achievement, all of the news crews suddenly left the Subaru tent and ran to the Toyota tent for the big news. Nigh, the biggest news in the history of the World Rally Championship. The FIA announced that following an investigation into the Toyota team, they had been disqualified from the championship for violating the regulations on the turbocharger assembly. What Toyota did was figure out how to bypass the turbocharger inlet restrictor so that more air could get into the engine than what the rules allowed. The device was brilliant, yet simple. The regulations didn't make turbos a spec part, meaning everyone was free to build them however they wanted within the FIA parameters. So Toyota put a little washer on their attachment points for the turbocharger assembly. And when that turbo was taken off of the car for repairs or for inspections, the air restrictor was all in order, by the book, perfectly legal. But put it on the car and tighten those bolts, that washer presses against the restrictor, pushing it forwards ever so slightly. Not much, only left a 5mm gap between the restrictor and the inlet. But a 5mm gap on top of a 20mm inlet is substantial. How substantial, you find yourself asking? A 50 horsepower gain, or a 17% power bump over their rivals. A gain that was completely invisible, because again, in order to inspect the part, you had to take it off of the car, and once you took it off of the car, it slid back into legality. The FIA president called it the most ingenious cheat he'd ever seen, and to this day, nobody knows how the FIA found out. They never caught it during an inspection. So the most common theory is that a whistleblower inside Toyota ratted them out. Either way, the constructor's title leader, the driver's title leader, and the defending world champion were all disqualified from 1995. In fact, Toyota as a team were banned from the World Rally Championship for 2 years. The disqualifications, unsurprisingly, really shook up the title standings. The Constructors' Championship was now stupidly close between Subaru and Mitsubishi, with just 8 points separating them, while the Drivers' title was now a dead heat heading into the final round of the RAC, with Sainz and McRae tied at 70 points apiece. When they went to the RAC, Subaru conquered with another 1-2 finish to ensure a comfortable first Constructors' Championship, and in their little civil war, it was McRae who took the win, and with it his only WRC title. More pressingly, Toyota returned to full-time competition in 1998 with a fully legal, this time for realsies, Corolla. They took one more title a year later before leaving for Formula One. A move so bad that they came back to the WRC 16 years later and are winning titles once again. And if the rumors around Hyundai's exit are true, then Toyota will be the only factory effort left in the World Rally Championship. Which is a bit ironic, since they are the first and to date only manufacturer to ever be kicked out by the stewards. If that's not the textbook definition of irony, I don't know what is.